Take a look at this. In 2022, BMW tried locking heated seats in their new vehicles behind a subscription paywall for $18 a month. The components for these heated seats were already installed into the vehicles, but BMW placed a block on the software to prevent functionality of this feature. Now, instead of having to pay for this feature up front when selecting a new vehicle, they tried locking it behind a microtransaction. It wasn't just heated seats though, because of course you're going to want the heated steering wheel too. Well, that'll be an additional $12 a month. And if you want automatic high beams or adaptive cruise control, well, they've put those behind a monthly subscription as well. That was until consumers started to push back on them, and BMW ended up having to reverse course, at least around the heated seats, for now. Subscriptions like this aren't uncommon. They're popping up everywhere, and what's even more unsettling is how far they've come in just the last 15 years.
We might be paying more for subscriptions than you realize.
Watching that price hike possibly at Netflix, Diane. Expect to pay more for your Netflix.
Shares of Spotify jumping about 5% after announcing it will raise prices.
Target just announced it's launching a new paid membership program.
That is why those subscriptions are so dangerous, because you end up with a bunch of them you don't even realize.
I know.
Locking features behind a software upgrade isn't new. It's just being taken to new extremes. Take Tesla, for example. In 2016, owners of the Model S70 had an option to unlock the full capacity of the 75 kilowatt-hour battery for $3,250. This battery was already installed in the vehicle, but the software locked it so you didn't have access to the full capacity of it. I mean, this sounds like something straight out of a mobile game. Well, there's also Mercedes-Benz, which has recently tried to entice customers for their electric vehicles by having them pay $60 a month to increase acceleration and power output by 20 to 24%. Now, I could go on and on and on. Subscription models have consumed us. It's not just annoying, it's reshaping what we own, how we live, and who truly holds the power in this new economy. Now, much to my surprise, the concept of a subscription business model actually dates way back to the 15th century, when early newspapers and magazines began charging readers a regular fee for access to their publications, something that is still extremely common today. But we largely have AT&T to thank, or blame, for embedding the subscription model into our daily life. Because back in 1885, they monetized telephone connectivity with monthly fees, normalizing this idea of recurring charges. But it wasn't until the mid-2000s that we really began to see a rise in the subscription model. This is largely due to SaaS, or software as a service. This is so common today, it's actually extremely rare to see something digital that doesn't operate as a subscription. And if it doesn't, guess what you're seeing instead? Netflix switched us from DVDs to streaming. Apple and Spotify shifted from selling songs, which was known as a transaction-based model, to an access-based model, allowing users to stream songs or albums on demand. However, these models remove any bit of ownership. Subscriptions are a goldmine for companies though. They bring in predictable, recurring revenue, something that gets investors on Wall Street very excited. And that's the simple reason why even companies who have had no business being in subscriptions have tried jumping on board, even if some of their attempts have failed tremendously. For consumers though, it flips the script. We're becoming less and less of a customer buying a product. Instead, we're renting, paying for the privilege to use what we only thought we owned. They are the landlords and we are the tenants. The global subscription economy is expected to grow to a whopping $1.5 trillion in 2025. And over the last decade, the industry has increased revenue by well over 400%. And while numbers vary, it's estimated that consumers spend anywhere from $90 to $270 per month on subscriptions. And these numbers have risen sharply over the last decade. But I also think in some ways these numbers are conservative.
You forget about it. As you just said, you can't even list all the things that you subscribe to. And you're not alone there, by the way. Surveys show that almost all of us have no idea exactly how much we're spending every month on this stuff.
Because most of us think of subscriptions that fall into the discretionary category. But something like insurance, while might be required, is still absolutely part of the subscription model. I mean, think about it. You need a subscription to access the internet. Therefore, this recent uptick of subscriptions has even led to entire business models being formed that help consumers become aware of their subscriptions and cancel the unwanted ones. I'm sure you've seen creators promote similar products like this here on YouTube, and I'm not hating on these companies, but I do think that it speaks volumes that these kinds of products even exist today due to how out of control subscriptions have become over the last decade. Now, there certainly is a counter argument to this topic. The reality is that consumers do find certain subscriptions useful. Otherwise, they simply wouldn't exist to the extent that they do today. I mean, look at Netflix. They have over 282 million paying subscribers. It's crazy. But I know for myself, as an avid user of YouTube, I think YouTube Premium is one of the best subscriptions that's out there. $14 a month to not see any ads, and my subscription still goes to supporting creators that I watch. Now, for someone who watches a lot of YouTube and is a part of the creator economy, this is a good deal. But I also know one day this price will increase, and depending on how much it does, that will certainly impact my view on if it's still valuable to me. The question that stirs debate is, would a one-time fee be more practical? Maybe not for something like YouTube Premium, but say for something like Adobe. Would a one-time fee for software be sufficient? Well, yes, of course. For most consumers, it'd be great, but for Adobe's investors, it would be the end of the world. And this is how Adobe and many other software companies actually used to operate, until they realized they could lock the access behind an ongoing subscription and update the software digitally, without having to release new versions every year or so. And while Adobe has benefited massively from this subscription pivot, the same software that once cost a one-time fee now generates ongoing revenue indefinitely. And this is billions of dollars for Adobe. So it's obviously a win for them. But for consumers, it's complicated. Because while subscriptions might lower the entry point and therefore feel manageable at first, over time they end up adding something far greater than we ever expected or anticipated to pay. And that's the trap. Subscriptions are deceptively convenient. They're designed to feel light and affordable in the moment. Just $10 here or $15 there. Oh, even a free trial? Well, just make sure you add your credit card so that when you forget to cancel, we'll charge you for the annual subscription rate. But seriously, when you zoom out and you look at the long term, these small amounts balloon into a financial burden that often outweighs the cost of owning the product outright. It's why companies push this model so aggressively. It's engineered to keep us locked in. But here's where it gets even trickier. When we don't own the tools we use, we're not just spending more money, we're also losing control. A corporation can do any number of things that essentially revoke your access at any time. Update their terms of service, decide they don't want to update this product, or decide that the subscription is just worth more than you initially agreed to pay. What can you do? Not much, unless you're ready to walk away entirely. But I'll get to that in a moment. This isn't just about editing software or streaming services. I mean, this stuff's being added to thermostats, refrigerators, washing machines, printers, etc. Things that have no business having subscription features. So what happens when everything around us becomes a subscription? When ownership becomes obsolete? When everything becomes a subscription, the effects ripple far beyond our wallets. It changes the fabric of our relationship with products, companies, and even each other. It's ultimately about power and who holds it. Think about it. Subscriptions create a sense of dependency. Instead of owning the tools we use, we're renting access to them. And with that dependency comes vulnerability, and corporations love that. Remember, 50% of Americans are financially illiterate. So of course corporations know this and want to take advantage of it however they can. Oh, and if you didn't know that stat, make sure you subscribe to this channel. All right, but here's the thing. It's not all doom and gloom. There's a growing movement to push back against these practices, and we're starting to see cracks in the subscription empire. Laws, policies, and even consumer-driven activism are reshaping the narrative bit by bit. Take California's Transparency in Digital Licensing Act. It's a new law they passed, and it forces companies to be upfront about what you're actually buying. If it's a license to use something and not full ownership, they have to disclose that clearly. No more burying it in fine print or sneaky terms of service. Now, it's a small step, but an important one. Hopefully this kind of law will be implemented at a federal level eventually, because it's important, and most people don't know that, let's say they buy a video game off of Steam, they don't technically own it. I mean, you don't have a physical copy, right? You have a digital one, which is essentially just a license to use it. And if Steam were to go out of business, you might have that license revoked, and then whatever you thought you owned just isn't so. But we should also look at Lina Khan and the FTC's recent click-to-cancel policy. This rule makes it mandatory for companies to let consumers cancel subscriptions just as easily as they signed up, with one click. No more endless loops of are you sure you want to cancel, or being forced to call a phone line that conveniently keeps you on hold for an hour. This type of stuff is designed to empower consumers, and I believe we need to encourage more actionable steps like this. I mean, the fact that the government has to get involved so corporations can't do this stuff anymore should speak volumes about how these subscriptions are set up very specifically to entrench us. But I'll keep it real. Regulation alone won't solve this problem. The subscription model is too profitable, too powerful, and too popular right now. Companies will always look for loopholes, and it's up to us as the consumers to hold them accountable. So what can consumers do? Well, ultimately, you gotta vote with your wallet. Not all subscriptions are inherently bad, but clearly there is a large amount of exploitation at play here. Consumers can find and utilize alternative products or services that don't require subscriptions. And there may not be an alternative for everything out there, but there are definitely some. Second, we can support movements like the right to repair. This isn't just about farmers being able to fix their tractors or you being able to take your car to your local mechanic. It's about all of us having control over the things we own, from smartphones to appliances. This movement challenges the idea that companies should dictate how and when we can repair their products, even though we bought them. The more momentum this movement gains, the harder it becomes for corporations to lock us into their ecosystems. And finally, we can demand better. The beauty of the digital age is that news can travel fast and our voices can carry weight. The only reason BMW backtracked on the heated seats thing was because consumers not only said no, they also didn't buy it. If you want to learn about why the economy feels broken for 99% of us, well, I broke it down in this video here. Check it out next. Thanks for watching.